We're actually live. Where is it? You're in the show. No, we're live, yeah. Let me see. Hello, everybody. I've robbed Sam's channel. He's not getting it back. Hacked him.
Hi, Wrighty.
Oh, that's very nice. So, my phone starts passing out. Okay. Today, we bring you to Sam Hill's American channel, and we're going to talk about history. Some facts that nobody knows. Because, like, history seems to be my favourite subject because I'm an old codger. So, some things that got said yesterday about when Sam and High Number spoke about was the fact that the Germans went into Russia. But before the Germans went into Russia, they were trying to seek peace with Britain a few times. And if it wasn't for the good old racist Winston Churchill, we would have actually got peace. And before you all say yes, Winston Churchill was a racist. He wrote in his diary how much he hated black people. And the fact that he wanted, when he was going to go to the Dunkirk and invade the beaches, and that he wanted the black people to go first, so that the Germans would waste all their bullets on the black people, not the white. But you didn't know that one. Then, why the Germans invaded Russia? They wanted to go get the oil fields that were just off the border of Russia, and that was the main reason Germany invaded Russia, was for them oil fields. That's why they lost the war, because they ran out of fuel. Which then led, at the end of the war, for who was it? Eisenhower, to go over to Saudi Arabia, which isn't called Saudi Arabia, it's actually called Arabia. The royal family of Saudi,
correct,
is the reason why it's called Saudi Arabia. And he struck a deal with the Saudi royal family that he will make sure that they stay in power as long as Arabia keep putting oil into America. So no matter what, America will always have oil as long as the Saudis are in power. Useless fact, Bin Laden himself was actually a member of that family.
correct.
So, where was I now? I was up to there, were I?
You're talking about the reason, which I disagree with you, by the way.
What reason? Which one was it?
Well, with Hitler, ideology played a big part, and his party was very anti-communist. So the oil fields and the resources were important. He wanted the Russian territory to kind of colonize, but it was very complex, and probably his early invasion of Russia cost him the war. It's true that the Germans, tried to take over and move in the direction of Romania and the oil fields, but they never got there. But the resources were a big part, but by itself, that wasn't the main reason. That there was an ideological conflict between his fascistic ideology and communism, and it was historically ingrained because they're right next to each other. So I think it's simplistic to say just the oil fields, though resources were certainly a major part. And in fact, the loss of oil toward the end of the war was a big part why he did lose the war.
Yeah, his main target was the oil fields, but he was going in to try to take over Russia fully, which was a stupid idea because the Russians just kept pulling back. As soon as the winter hit, the Russians just pulled back.
Well, in the beginning, he had great success. And I think when it came to Stalingrad, that was a big deal. And in fact, the Germans looked like they were going to take Stalingrad, but because of Zhukov and his pincer movement, they surrounded the Nazis and captured hundreds of thousands of Germans. And I think looking back, that was a key moment in the war against Hitler, that the Russians stopped Hitler. Without the Russians coming into the war, Hitler may have won.
Yeah, I was going to answer that because Sarah just asked that then. Without Russian troops, the Allies wouldn't have won. 50-50. America was always part of the war. America was feeding
Well, they
Russia and
weren't always part of the war. Once
well,
they came in, they had
no,
great
no,
resources, and they really helped. Yeah,
no. From the first day, America was feeding the UK resources, but they would only
correct.
but it was our main ships that were going over there, getting the resources off them, and then they'd only transport us halfway, and then we had to be there to transport to protect them from the other half. If it were for the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor, then I doubt you would have got involved because the
What a
American
great
people never
point.
wanted to get involved.
There
WE,
was
and that was
a
just
very, yeah,
that
a very
he
heavy
wasn't actually supposed to
isolationist
bomb. Oh,
view.
sorry, Sam.
No, you're right. I was responding to your point that there was a very strong isolationist movement in America. Americans didn't want to enter the war, but FDR was providing England under the guise of a land lease and all of that. But the American people, really, majority did not want to come into the war. But once the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, the Axis powers were allied, so Hitler came to war against America because of his alliance with Japan. If America had not come in the war, Germany would have been in much better shape.
Yeah, Hitler did actually say that in his diaries that he didn't want. He literally wants to drop being allies with Japan once they done that because they fucked him over. He'd never wanted. While he was well, he knew that America was sending goods, weapons, armories, food, and everything over to us. That's why there was like a treaty because you were sending over. He could the U-boats could actually take us out. That was fine. It didn't bother the American people that your U-boats were getting taken out for some reason. But well, not your U-boats, your ships, your cargo ships, your battleships, and everything. That was okay. But as soon as they bombed Pearl Harbor, Hitler was supposed to have gone nuts about the Japanese people because he went nuts
Yeah,
on
yeah.
what was his name?
Well,
The Italian one.
I'm sure he didn't like that
Yeah.
because why bring the superpower? It wasn't actually superpower. Britain
Yeah.
started the war with supremacy on the seas. They were the dominant power at the beginning of the war. But at some point, Germany had achieved great success. They were in control of the continent except for England.
No, that's not actually true though, because for every we were actually before the war we were in like a fucking a naval battle with Germany. They build
Uh,
one ship, and every time they build one ship, we build two. Then the navy was 10 times better than ours, but because we
The
had more,
German Navy? I didn't know that.
ten
The
times
German
better.
Navy? Really?
10 times better. Yeah, we just build a ship, and also in a few days they'd spend a month on a ship.
But you're saying that the Germans were the dominant naval force, not the British?
Yeah, we just outnumbered them.
Well, I don't know about that. I might disagree with that.
No, we actually outnumbered them. That was the only difference because
Well, numbers are not
everyone,
always the key. Like the Chinese might have better numbers, but we have better technology and better equipped technology.
yeah, but you say that, and then you look at the people who
Uh,
America actually kept alive. One of the reason America has some of the greatest ships in the world is because of German engineering.
yeah, and we adapted German technology, especially after the war, where the Germans did have an advantage in the seas were their submarine fleet, which did great damage.
I'm just going to answer a Sarah Lee comment. Why did we drop the A bomb
Sure.
and not the H bomb? Well, the bombs that you dropped in Hiroshima
Uh,
wasn't meant for Hiroshima. It was the fact that the plane was running out of fuel and they spotted a little bit of land and they just dropped it. The people on the plane were told, if you can't see land, don't drop the bomb.
uh.
As soon as they seen land, they dropped the bomb. It was in the wrong place.
Are you talking about Nagasaki?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
hit at
the
Hiroshima.
second bomb. But the hydrogen bomb, if that's what you're referring to, came after the development of the Manhattan Project bomb. The hydrogen bomb, far
Sorry,
more powerful.
sorry, that's me little one. He seems to be like, I don't know, he's just on one.
So the lessons of history, one simplistic lesson is the failure of diplomacy and more than that, appeasement. So now we can learn from history, and I'm sure Trump has learned there's a danger in appeasement, and Obama and Biden acted out of fear. They were basically paralyzed. That enabled Iran to get to the point where there's dispute about how close Iran was to getting the bomb. But apparently they were on their way, and maybe Trump acted out of that historic circumstance where the world before Hitler appeased Hitler, certainly the British. And in the early days, I think the historians say Hitler could have been stopped much earlier, and he wasn't because of appeasement. And the lesson may have carried to Biden and all these Western nations not taking action against Iran. We'll see how that plays out.
I kind of disagree because when
Oh, your volume went low, sir.
Sorry, I kind of disagree because when Hitler decided to start going into war, we didn't care. We wasn't ready. We were still suffering from World War One. We didn't have the manpower, the necessity, the armory, the weapons, nothing. We had nothing. We were struggling. We were still building homes for people. And when they decided to go, it was he took over Poland, we done nothing. He took over Austria, we done nothing. I can't remember which other. I think it was Denmark. He walked in, and within an hour,
well, they bombed. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking of Denmark, but they bombed Rotterdam. Is that? I think that might be the Netherlands. So the Germans had overwhelming force. Even so they caved quickly. The worst were the French, because
the French I can't stand the French.
I'm sorry, what, Wrighty?
I can't stand the French with the way they acted, because as soon as Germany come walking in, they ran and left us to stand there and take the hit. They just ran away. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, they were supposed to be a major power, and their whole defense was based on a lie about having this marginal line, and the Nazis just blitzkrieged through it, and then the French fell so quickly, and they were major collaborators with the Germans, and they even the Germans gave them something called Vichy France, which was led by, I think, Pétain, who was a collaborator. But generally, the French failed as a nation in their military defense, right?
Yeah, that's how it was. Yeah, they were like morons, but they always were. To answer your question, Sarah, Germany had people coming in from, at the beginning, I believe. They had Russia. They took over Austria, which was technically a part of Germany anyway, because half of them spoke German at the time. They had troops from Italy come over and support them. But he done a blitzkrieg.
Well, that was Mussolini. Mussolini came first with his fascism, and Hitler liked Mussolini. But originally, Mussolini was dominant. But as the war continued, of course, Hitler took dominance. And in the end, even tried to rescue Mussolini as he was captured, and actually did rescue Mussolini from partisans. But eventually, the partisans did catch up to Mussolini again and string him up publicly. Yeah.
It's like, but he had all them, but then he also had the tactic of, I'm not going to attack you, and then bam, get you. That was it. He didn't know it was coming. It's that fast.
Oh yeah. Correct.
And I'm going to upset a lot of people here, but what we were told about the Holocaust is lies.
Okay, well, can we maybe thank you, Sarah? Maybe we can read
it's not a full-on like attack on the Jewish people, because like yet he did.
Oh, I know. No. We're talking. People have different views on it, so it's cheap to if somebody demonstrates anti-Semitism, but Wrighty is not. But he's taking up a historical perspective, and we can discuss it. But we come in not being personal, because Wrighty.
What I was taught in school, it was a lot of Jewish people that died, and after I'd done a lot of digging, I found out it wasn't just Jewish people. It was anyone who said no to Hitler, black people, anyone with any type of disability.
Absolutely.
Like, twins got
Absolutely. Yeah.
sadly, what he did to a lot of people in like medicine wise actually benefited the world, and it's
In
hard
some
to see.
ways, but you can't say that Hitler benefited the world. How many millions of people were destroyed, and it kind of broke the UK too. The
Yeah, but
war.
that's what I mean. But in some ways, he did actually benefit. If it wasn't for the war and what Hitler
Uh,
wanted the what was it, V2 bombs, which then turned into NASA. And
yeah, they finally came up with their super weapon, but it was the V, whatever you said, and it they sent it to London, but it did not really move the war. It terrorized the population, but it did not achieve what Hitler wanted.
I'm from where the Beatles were made. Sarah, if you can hear me, but that's
Can
what it
I
is.
answer her question? She said, something I've always wondered is Germany, like geographically, is a small country. It's small, but not compared to the US, but it's not small compared to Europe. But how
Yeah,
did they have so many troops, like so many soldiers, especially if they were, because, do you want to answer? How do they have so many troops? You want to
uh,
answer?
they formed the
Yeah,
National Party of the Nazis because, well, Hitler was put in there as a puppet, but this person said he could control them and couldn't, and he nationalised the whole country. Then
correct,
he had Austria, Italy, and other
correct.
people coming in to help, but it was the fact that Germany would actually fit nicely where Texas is.
Uh-huh.
It looks small, like compared to America. America's a
Yeah, it's
whole
not that
continent.
small. Yeah,
America's a whole continent. Like I think Britain
it's
was
a
something
huge
holiday.
country, and Russia too.
Yeah.
But I've been in Germany. Maybe you have. Have you been to Germany, Righty?
No, I've never been off the UK to be honest, because like I like a lot of history stuff,
Uh,
and every time my mates were all like, "Oh, let's go to Ibiza," I'm like, "Why would I spend money to go to a pub
okay.
when I can get into every club in town here for free?"
Germany's much larger than Britain. I think it probably takes about 2 days to cross, whereas in UK you can cross UK in about 1 day. But yeah, Americans very and also coming
Less,
back to the population, a
less than
lot
a day.
of troops committed to the Nazis from occupied countries. So there were troops from Poland and Greece and all over who became part of the force of the Axis powers. So it wasn't just the Nazis, but eventually they were ground down. This policy, like in Russia, Russia just threw everything at them, but
Yeah,
population wise, the Allies far dominated and in resources. So the Germans depended on their early push, and they had wonderful success, even in Russia, but eventually they were ground down. And probably when America came into the war, they were finished eventually because America brought so many resources.
yeah,
And the Germans were running out. And Wrighty mentioned the oil fields. Well, in the push invasion into Russia, Hitler had some of his troops pushed toward the oil fields, I think in Romania, but they never got there.
I didn't know they went for Romania, so that's something I've learned.
Yeah, I think they were in Romania. So
Oh,
because they could get
yeah,
there,
hold on.
the
Don't be
Germans
sorry.
ran out of oil, which Wrighty kind of brought up. Critical, right?
Don't
Yeah.
be sorry. Don't be sorry, Sarah. If you don't ask questions, you don't learn.
Oh, I'm not sorry.
No, I'm
Um,
talking to Sarah. Sarah said you're sorry for
oh,
asking
I'm yeah.
junior high
It's my
questions.
audio is a problem, so I'm doing the best I can. My mic gave out.
Yeah, because I asked the question to Lydia yesterday and she went on a spag, but I didn't actually know. So, because I
I
didn't
like
know.
the questions. Any questions? And here comes one of the smartest people I know, Mike. Uh, I hope you're going to go over Bikini Atoll and Grenada. Does that have to do with the development of the bomb? Because the bomb was dropped experimentally and really messed up the environment. But be a little bit more specific. Maybe well, stop with the gay bomb talk. It wasn't gay. It determined the end of the war with Japan. Like,
There was a bomb called something that did sound like it was gay. I can't remember what it was called.
Oh, Enola Gay. Is that what? Yeah, Righty,
Yeah,
you caught it. That was the name of the other bomb. Was what Big Fat Boy or something.
yeah,
There
the
were
fat
two
one.
bombs, and yeah.
But he did have a what's the name? Then you had the bunker busters, which I don't know why we still don't use because they look hilarious in the film, but they were true. The bunker busters. There's
We
a
can talk about that, but I wanted to point out that originally the one of the lessons that is oversimplified but has weight is that appeasement did not seem to work. It certainly didn't work against Hitler, and maybe historians say Hitler could have been brought down early if the powers had acted. But the powers, the people, were so tired from World War One, which wasn't previously that far off. So the people had suffered so greatly in that war. The rational people, like in America, did not want war, and rational people don't really want to go into Iran. But sometimes nations are forced against the wall, and that's where Trump did make a bold decision that Obama and Biden let Iran continue. So I give credit to Trump. There's now dispute how much was Iran damaged, but I would think a lot, uh, probably not destroyed. But because Trump acted with the Israelis, Iran, I believe, was greatly damaged, and hopefully they're in a place of diplomacy. But the mullahs in Iran are driven by their ideology and religion, so they have really shown no willingness to take down their nuclear program, but they might now be forced, and that's the hope, right? So
yeah.
no
But
appeasement.
the problem with that though is Trump said he was going to bomb them nuclear sites 3 days
Yeah,
before he done it.
yeah.
Do you actually think he actually hit anything that was nuclear?
I think he acts on a transactional basis,
Yeah,
and he saw a decision needed to be made, and credit him because most leaders act out of fear of consequence, and they're kind of paralyzed. So nations like Iran and Russia took advantage and advanced, just like Hitler took advantage when he saw the appeasement of nations like UK. Was it who was I
well, no,
forget.
I agree with what Trump done, but I don't think he actually took anything out.
Uh,
If I told you 3 days in advance that I'm going to bomb your nuclear sites, wouldn't you just move your nuclear material?
yes, yeah. Well, there is some before the bombing, the Buster bump. There are aerial shots of like 15 trucks lining up at four door site, and the speculation is that the enriched uranium they had 60% that it was moved. But I would think the Israelis were monitoring those trucks and may know where the uranium is. So we'll
Yeah, that's
see.
what I mean. I know you. I know we can actually see nuclear material from like wherever it is from the drones, but
Uh,
it just makes me wonder if I warned you 3 days in advance and I'm going to bomb you, what's the name? And it's Iran. The reason they've got nuclear weapons is must be because of
Yeah,
America
you would think they moved
or
it,
Russia.
but
Let's
there
be honest.
was a bunch of decoy too. Like when Trump said he'll decide in 2 weeks, that was just an attempt to deceive.
Yeah,
But
I don't.
if I was Iran, you would move the material, right?
Yeah,
So
but
they might have. Yeah.
talking about decoys, though, no one's ever going to beat the decoy before the war, though, are they? Let's be honest. Before World War Two,
I'm sorry, what before World War II?
well, before we stormed the beaches, if you know,
Oh,
we had
Dunkirk? Yeah.
yeah, we decided to like blow up a load of balloon tanks and
Yeah.
everything to say that we had been more than what we did.
Well, there was great deceivement because the Germans and the world knew that the Allies were going to invade the continent, but they weren't sure where. So the Germans and guessed, and there was a lot of deceiving by the British that
Yeah,
it would come at Calais, which I've been to, which is the shortest distance between the continent in France and UK, but the actual invasion was at Dunkirk and a couple other beaches. So the Allies made a concentrated attempt, to fool the Germans into thinking they were going to invade at Calais, where they invaded another place. So I've heard that that whole D-Day, the odds were 50-50.
Yeah, and what I've heard, the D-Day stands for Day-Day. I
Uh-huh.
don't, I don't know if Mike can confirm that, but it's supposed to be some good army thing. D-Day, Day-Day was D-Day. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was called D-Day in America anyway.
Yeah, but
You have the UK perspective, which is interesting. I'm an American, and you have that UK understanding,
yeah, but
right?
it's like a military thing, but it was actually the operation was called Day-Day, but they shortened it to
Oh,
D-Day.
Day. By
Yeah,
the way, I will say some ground words that Wrighty is not to be attacked. This is not the
no,
usual drama. So,
uh,
Lydia, I'm going to delete your comment, but nobody, he's not here. He's
uh,
generous
it,
to be attacked by
it's all
bullshit.
right, Sam. It's all right, Sam.
No,
Lydia
it's
told me
not
she
all
loves
right.
me, so it's
No,
okay.
it's not. No, I need you concentrated on this discussion, not dealing with bullshit. So, Mike, I see you here. If anybody attacks Righty or me, please delete them so we can have a serious discussion and Righty doesn't
Oh,
have to be concerned with bullshit.
I ignore comments like that anyway. It's boring. It's just a it's a weak attempt at trolling. They need to try better.
No, I'm not permitting troll. That's not what this stream is about. You don't deserve
It's
to be trolled.
basically.
So
That's
I'm making the call. No one attack Righty or me. Do it another time. This is an attempt because I love history and I appreciate 11 people. I know it's not a lot, but it's worth it for me because I love the subject and I'm lucky to have Righty up here. Thank you, Righty.
Thanks, Mike. It's just I hear people say it was Day-Day, and you're most probably correct. This embarkation day is most probably correct.
Yeah, probably you're right. Probably people articulate, call it different things,
Yeah.
right? But
These,
the name
Mike,
is not important.
Mike's most probably correct, but they had all kinds of the Germans. They had better tanks.
Well,
No,
there's the Germans had their Tiger tank, but it had a weakness that our Abram tanks were more maneuverable, and and there were problems with the Tiger tank, like they were so big that the traditional rails could not handle them. So it
yeah,
took a lot of resources to even have the Tiger tank, but in the end, the Abram tanks did more damage than the Tiger.
no, because it was always the way the Americans done it. I believe it was the Americans. We might have been part of it as well, but because the Abraham tank, what they do is they'd send five to take one a
Yeah,
German tank out.
yeah,
Four American tanks that get destroyed, and then
yeah.
always be one left. Lucky enough, hopefully, fingers crossed, to take out their tank. But
Well, they were
the
smart because
Germans,
they were
the
smaller.
Germans only
There were
had,
so many more Abram tanks than Tiger tanks, right?
yeah, hi Lizzie. But the Germans only had the second best tanks. The best tanks were the Russians.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They,
That's
they, were,
interesting.
they were built 10 times better, but the
I didn't
Russians
know that.
couldn't.
See, I learned something.
The Russians
Hi,
actually
Liz.
used them because when they did decide to fight back, it was the middle of winter for them, and
Uh-huh.
but all the Russians did was just kept pulling back until winter, and then as soon as the winter came in, they just took everyone out.
Yeah, I think you're right. They waited for winter, and that really did the Russians in. So Hitler didn't learn from Napoleon. Because Napoleon invaded and winter brought him down. A lot of historians say Hitler was great in certain areas, but not as a military commander. He made a
Yeah,
lot of mistakes.
he wasn't really a general,
Mhm.
he, but from his own experience from World War One, like the gas,
Yeah,
he wouldn't have the gas use because like the gas, if World War One was a pointless standstill war, but the
yeah,
gas, he set the gas off, and then because depending on the way the wind was.
yeah,
It went back on the Germans and he suffered through one of them once
yeah.
and was like, nah, I'm not doing that again. Then there's also the conception that he actually could have been Jewish, but because his half sister was,
Well, I've talked about that. What
it,
happened was, first of all, in World War One, Hitler was a sergeant, and there was mustard gas going on both sides, and Hitler was gassed. And a lot of people think his incredible oratory, his voice, was created through that attack by mustard gas, which I believe it's true. But now,
Yeah.
regarding the Hitler thing, it is known that Hitler's mom worked for a Jewish family. So the theory is, if you buy it, is that oftentimes the head of the family would have sexual relations with lesser people, like a maid.
Yeah.
So there was something going on. I think Hitler had a stepfather, so it's possible that if there were relations between the mom and the Jewish head of the home, that maybe he indeed was half Jewish, which is interesting because, of course, he took down 6 million Jews and other people, like you've mentioned. So he certainly did not look Aryan, did he?
No, he was Austrian, wasn't he? He wasn't even German. He was from Austria.
Well, Austrians are closely related to Germany.
Oh yeah, Austria and
I've been in
Germany are
both
part of it.
countries, and you get a lot of the Aryan. Actually, I have that look. I certainly hate Nazis, but a lot of people in his organization, like Rosenberg and Himmler, they did not look near the Aryan ideal,
No.
which is interesting because that was their ideology. But if you look at Hitler, he certainly was not Aryan ideal. Maybe he was half Jewish, right?
Yeah, I reckon he was a bit half Jewish, but it was mainly his
Well, it's not
sister.
definitely, but it's a
His
theory.
sister. Yeah, I reckon. I do believe his sister was more Jewish than he was, and because his sister was how can I
Hitler
put it?
had a sister. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like a half sister, wasn't it? But
Half sister. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
she was assaulted in certain ways,
Uh-huh.
and then she was also like put to rest, and Hitler blamed a certain group of people.
Hitler blamed the Jews for just about everything. So people say Hitler was crazy, but Dan Carlin does make a good point that Hitler was evil, but according to his theory, he was consistent because he blamed the Jews for everything. So he was consistent in an evil plan. If you think the Jews are responsible for everything bad, he was logical in exterminating or trying to exterminate them. And unfortunately, he was basically successful in removing the main Jewish population from Europe.
Yeah,
But he was obviously wrong. In fact, he drove a lot of Jewish scientists to America. And if you look at the development of the bomb in the Manhattan Project, many of those scientists were Jewish immigrants. So if Jews had been in Germany, think of the great inventions they would have
yeah.
done.
People lied, didn't they? I think it was Holland. There was a rabbi who all he had to do was write a piece of paper to say you were Jewish. They're not
Uh-huh.
Jewish. There wasn't a rabbi. It was some, I think like a Christian or something. All he had to do was write a piece of paper. And what happened was is he went there and the Nazis went over there and said, "We know what you're doing because you were Jewish. You go see him and he go, okay, you're Catholic now. End of."
Uh-huh.
And the Nazis found out and he went up to see him and he went, "If you keep doing this, we're going to kill you." And he went, "Okay." The next day, he'd put another 500 Jewish people and turned them Catholic allegedly. And then you had I can't remember what country it was, but the Nazis told the country that you got to line up all your Jewish people.
Yeah.
You're going to wear this band. And they went, okay, yeah, whatever. So everyone in the country put the band on. And he was like, well, what do we do?
I think you're talking about Denmark, where the
Yeah,
king of
yeah,
Denmark wanted to protect his Jewish population. So he, in protest, put on the Jews were forced to wear a Star of David, I believe, yellow, and
yeah.
the king made a demonstrative model, put on that star, and a lot of the population did the same thing. Most leaders caved, but there were a couple courageous people such as the King of Denmark.
Yes, that's what I mean. But the worst part of it, which I've just
Mhm.
recently found out myself, is I think it was Queen Elizabeth I
Uh-huh.
was related to the royal family of Germany, Russia, practically the whole of Europe when this was going on.
Uh-huh.
So technically, my royal family, as everybody knows, my royal family here is German.
Yeah, the origins of the English family are German, and they had a Germanic name which they changed,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. In
So
fact, the at one point, I think it was, who was it? King, I forget his name, William, was very friendly toward the Nazis. And he's the one that was forced to resign when he took up with an American divorcee. If he hadn't
Yeah,
resigned, you would have had a kind of a pro or sympathetic head of monarchy, kind of supporting Hitler.
because I can't remember I think it was Edward during World War II. I'm not too sure. I can't remember him because like he just stepped down and our Queen took over.
Well,
That's
he
before
stepped down because he was forced to, because he
No,
wanted to marry Simpson, who was an American divorcee, and the British government would not have permitted him to stay. So he stepped down for love, basically.
yeah, but that's literally how we ended up with a Queen.
Yeah, exactly. History
Uh,
is very strange that way. If he had remained monarchy, the government may have been more sympathetic to the Nazis.
Sarah, no, we never. But Ava Braun was Jewish and converted over to
Can we
Christianity.
state the question? Is it the one that Sarah Lee? And thank you for being. If you want to come on air, Sarah, Wrighty said come on air because I want to give Wrighty a leading role in this. She said, well, he didn't definitely did not identify as half Jewish, and that's a theory, Sarah. Some historians believe it, some don't. But she did indeed, as a fact, be a maid, his mother, and worked for a Jewish family. And later on, she developed breast cancer and had a Jewish doctor. And Hitler did favor that doctor. In fact, permitted him to leave the country and save his life because he respected the Jewish doctor trying to save his mother. But he definitely hated the Jews with a fury, for
Yeah,
sure.
conspiracy theory. Don't know if it's true because there's no information. But Ava Braun was supposed to be Jewish and converted over when she met him.
Could have been. I didn't know that because, like in any nation, even with blacks, some people change for survival and pass for something else. The problem physiologically was that Jews were identified because they were circumcised, and the other non-Jewish population frequently weren't. So
Yeah,
it's hard to cover up if just pull down your pants, which the Nazis probably did, and
yeah,
if
they
you
did.
were circumcised, you were probably Jewish.
Yeah, they did. They used to pull people's pants down and everything.
Well, it was a sign of identification because, of course, the Nazis wanted to identify that poor population to send to camps. But your point earlier, yes, there weren't only Jews sent to the camps, but many other peoples like gypsies. And you alluded to part of the ideology was Hitler early went after the handicapped population, gassing them, but the population arose and put the rails on that one thing. And Hitler and his government did indeed stop gassing handicapped people, at least in the open, because they would round up the handicapped people, gas them, kill them. But at that point, Hitler had to recognize and bring along the German population to the pathogenic reality that eventually became Germany. But it didn't happen all at once.
Yeah, no, but they did move over the mentally disabled into testing
Yeah.
drugs on. Literally, a lot of it was just testing chemical warfare on them. But then it turned into uh, a lot of the medication that we use now.
Uh-huh.
Strangely enough, the only thing I am actually grateful of Hitler is the fact that we have Fanta,
Uh-huh.
because Coca Cola wouldn't go over there. They pulled
Well,
out.
we have things
But
like,
they have to make
a
a drink
lot of
and
companies
go
like
on with Fanta.
Bayer were major supporters of Hitler, including Ford Motor Company, because Hitler had in his living place a picture of Henry Ford, who helped publish the protocols of Zion or something like that, because some people were violently anti-Semitic, and Henry Ford, the founder of Ford, was. So there were some Americans certainly sympathetic toward Nazis, including Lindbergh, and the American majority did not want to enter the war. They were kind of forced into it. Certainly when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and you mentioned earlier Hitler did not approve of that because it brought America into the war, and he didn't want the American machine brought in, at least not at that point.
During the war, it was still isolation and isolation. It's still isolation. Well, you still did mix races in America, and when they come over here, the amount of shit they tried to give us, and that we just told them to fuck off, because they wouldn't have. They were like, "Oh, kind of a black person in here, the Americans," and we went, "Behave, fuck off." And Eisenhower actually asked Churchill if we would actually implant that, and Churchill went, "No, fuck off." Even though Churchill was a massive racist, he went, "No, fuck off," because the British wouldn't have that.
Well, not only was Churchill racist,
that's not against Americans and not in the race. The war.
Not only was Churchill racist, but most Americans were, especially in the South. But the common enemy became Hitler, and that's why America and England allied with the communist Russia, even though our Western societies, like American UK, are violently anti-communist, most of the governments. But when you're being attacked, you make, even in our little world of YouTube, that kind of hate bonding that went on.
Well, I mean, I'll publicly state that I say the N word, but I say it in a certain context. I don't say it in a hate way.
Just say the N word. I don't want
this is your channel. I won't say that word because it's your channel.
Yeah, don't do
I say it on a certain context. I was technically given permission from people.
But did YouTube give you permission?
Yeah, it depends on the context how you say it. If I went up to you and went, "You're a dirty N word,"
why do you really need to use it? Can't you make your point without using it?
Oh yeah, no, it's like a white person I speak to about it when I say it.
Yeah, I don't really want my own channel. I don't want permission. I know you can say it in appropriate context.
It all goes by the context. Like years ago, people were calling them the N word isn't even a bad word, to be honest. A lot of black people think, but years ago when the slave trade started, the master, let's say the master, he only ever called them the N word in fear.
Correct.
Because he stepped up and he was like, "You dirty N-word," or "You dirty." Any other time, it was "boy."
Yeah, correct.
It was never used out of like what's it? It was used in fear, and then it got escalated to the point where it turned into now, and then you got the rappers and all that using it.
Yeah. Well, the word has generally been used to denigrate, and that's true today. And yes, rappers use it, but I think rappers are terrible as models. I wish nobody used it. It's only divided. How's the word ever helped? It hasn't. So even on YouTube, we could get channels taken down. But I agree.
Yeah, I agree with you like that. It can have channels taken down, but it's all goes on the context. If you go up there and go, "Hey, yo, mate, N-word," that's not like I'm not being audible to you, mate. I'm saying, "Yeah, yo, you're my mate," or whatever. It's like a language barrier that people don't understand. But when people are sitting there, go, "Well, you're this and you're this way and you're that way," it's like, why? You're not stupid.
But it's the word has caused much damage, and some black people say, "Well, it's okay for me, but it's not okay for everybody." So, in terms of helping our society, not. There's no good usage for the word, and rappers are not good role models for any child. They're terrible.
I don't know. I'd say some of them are. Some of them are.
Like P. Diddy.
Oh no, not P. Diddy. What was his name? The one who wore the pants, the parachute pants.
Well, I don't really follow rappers, but generally they're detrimental because you want good models, and they talk about bitches and money and.
The songs they do are terrible, but the concept of stuff like 50 Cent, Eminem, Eminem, people, if you look at some interviews with him, they'll go, "Well, I went to work with him, and what's the name? He'd work from 9 to 5. As soon as 5 o'clock come, he go, 'No, I'm done by.' And they'd be like, 'What, we still got something?' He go, 'No, I've got my family at home. My family's want to put him by.' And he just leave. 50 Cent come in, and he's all business, and he's like, 'Well, you need to do this and this and this.'"
Yeah, there can be some positive outcomes in art. But generally, rappers have historically been very anti-phobic, anti-woman, etc., etc.
That's what he said about Eminem, didn't he? And then Elton John come out and went, he's not homophobic. He sent me a diamond and
Is he homophobic? A lot
no,
of them are. I don't know. I know
no.
Eminem, some of his
Em,
songs, but I
yeah,
don't know his
he
politics.
say his songs, but then Elton John, you know who Elton John is. He's like the
Well,
biggest.
Elton John made like he hid his homosexuality. He even married, but later in life he came out, so to speak.
Yeah,
Elton
but
John.
Elton John didn't have a choice though, did he? To be honest, he had to hide it.
No, he had a choice because look at the guy from Queen. He could have kept pretending. Eventually, the guy from, what was his name
Even
on
Freddie Mercury, but even Freddie Mercury,
Freddie Mercury when he got AIDS.
Freddie Mercury hid it as
The
well.
So, but it wasn't a portrait of courage because the gay community needed people to come out. And the guy from Queen blew it. Rock Hudson blew it. But Elton John, give him credit, he finally did own up and indeed got a partner who was gay. So, in that sense, when you get a gay partner, it's up, right?
Yeah, but look what
But he
happened.
came late to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but look what happened to them in the earlier generation.
Because in
If you gay,
America,
if
the
so,
tolerance of gay didn't really come in until the late 60s. Before
all,
that, including what?
I have a gay friend who
Even,
grew up in. Well,
uh,
he's just over 50, nearly 60 now.
uh,
And as he was growing up and he come out as gay, he got
uh,
sent to a church and got beaten daily
yeah, this is true.
until he thought he wasn't gay. So
Yeah,
then he ended up moving to South Africa, got married, and had like 6, 7 kids. And that's the way it was back then. So Elton John didn't
yeah.
have much of a choice. So if he come out, would he have got beaten?
Okay.
Like even Freddie Mercury hid it for years before it come out. The only reason it come out is because of the AIDS thing. And
Yeah, when it really counted, huh?
and even then, the AIDS thing, yeah, everyone said, "Oh, you're gay because you got AIDS." No, AIDS is very easy to catch. Just people didn't realize.
Well, I think the main thing was anal sex, which gay people do. So in Africa, it wasn't primarily gay. It was actually used as birth control for rectal sex. You can't have children, but in America, in the beginning, the primary group catching AIDS were the gay population. And politically, because they were gay, a president like Reagan did not give it the focus. And indeed, when asked later what Reagan regretted, he said his slow response to handling AIDS because of the gay problem.
Yeah,
You know, he was probably bigoted in that way because society was very anti-gay. Probably still is, but hopefully we're more tolerant. Indeed, being gay, committing the act of sodomy was illegal in the UK for a long time, and in parts of America, it was illegal to commit sodomy. And there's famous cases in England, like Oscar Wilde, who got prosecuted for that very thing.
I want to cough, so I'll be back now.
Little Richie wasn't openly gay that I know. He was a black singer, and he was very flamboyant. And maybe you thought that, but I don't remember Exile that
Sorry,
little. It's not Little Richie. You're talking about Little Richard, right?
I don't know.
What
I
hardly
can't.
anybody was openly gay because there's such discrimination early, especially in the Bible Belt, and really recently, and probably with the '60s movement, there was more tolerance for gay people. But still, in our culture, you see it here. When somebody wants to insult people here, they will call them gay. But
Yeah, I don't get that either.
what?
I don't get that insult either, to be honest. But
Well,
I'm not.
because the gay is not represented as a positive person. So even now on here, so they use it as an insult. You don't understand that?
No, I understand I understand why they do it.
Content.
I just don't understand why we still do it.
You
But it,
don't why they still
but it,
use
yeah,
because it still
we're in
works.
2025 now. If you're gay, you're gay. Who cares?
But no, a lot of people care. It depends demographically. So if you're in Hollywood, there's more tolerance. But if you're in Missouri, there's less tolerance, especially in the Bible Belt, because America, we have separation. But if you go to the Bible, it's a sin, certainly to
Yeah,
commit sodomy.
it's in the Bible that it's a
Yeah,
sin
it's
to
in the
be.
Bible, right?
Yeah, it's in the Bible to be a sin that to be gay or
Yeah.
something. I
But
can't remember the
adultery
exact.
in the old days, adulterers were stoned,
Yeah,
and I read like half of Americans commit adultery.
and
So I'm not
possibly.
fundamentalist on the Bible. I don't want to stone adulterers.
And
Right?
back in the day, the common man shouldn't be getting married, but now everyone wants to get married.
Well, I don't think everybody wants to get married.
A large percentage of the world population want to get married, but years ago it was you got married for treaties, not for
Uh,
love.
well,
It was never love.
marriage has become less a thing because legally it discriminates in the sense that in California, if you marry a woman for 10 years, right, and you make a lot more than her, and you get divorced after 10 years, you have to support her the rest of her life.
Yeah,
So, in terms of
isn't that
benefit,
isn't that until she's married, but marries again? No,
pardon?
isn't
Yeah,
that?
what happens is I think I won't say the person, but this person who you might know was with this woman for say 8 years. And the question is, why didn't you get married? Well, if she was getting child support, that if she had got married, she would have lost her child support, right?
Yeah, even that I think's a bit fucking. I can't. The child support thing, I reckon, I do believe that's way out of proportion. I guess I agree with paying child support and paying for your kid.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well,
you have who's going to support that child that
no, I do agree with that. But how many parents out there, how many mothers who apply once a child support actually spend all that money on the kid?
yeah, there needs to be control, and a lot of times that money is not spent on children. So it's the best at this point, and it can be very unfair, like divorce laws in California. Luckily, I was when I got divorced. She came from a very wealthy family, so there was never a question of money, really, which
It's,
helped us be civil. But a lot of hatred because of divorce laws. That let's say that a woman fucks around. The law doesn't care. It's no fault divorce. So a lot of men end up paying for these ex-wives who have boyfriends living with them, and yet they have to pay. So
does that still work for the man though? If the woman's the one
uh,
that was the what's the word? The main if the woman's the main income that makes the most money and they get a divorce, does the woman have to pay the man alimony?
no, in certain no, it's the one who makes more money, but generally the man does. But there are cases where the woman has to pay alimony to the man, right?
I, yeah, I still think it's stupid though. It's just
Well, it's a general application, so I don't agree with a lot of it.
yeah,
But
I think it's a stupid rule.
so in terms of marriage, you're kind of giving up logic because you want the benefit of stating your loyalty. Like me, I married my wife because it was important and for a lot of reasons, but practically it's probably not a good move because
That,
she
I get why people get married. I just don't see why you should have to pay alimony if you get a divorce.
Well, I guess that traditionally women have been kept in the home, and they have no support on their own. Historically, they haven't developed their a status as money makers. So the man walks away and leaves the woman, and society wants the woman still to be supported. But nowadays, it's getting more equal, isn't it?
You know, to me nowadays, there's no point in it. Years ago, yeah, I get that, Rafan. Yeah, when women were tied to the kitchen, I get it. But you have
Uh,
to pay the woman because most women didn't have the education a man could have.
yeah,
They couldn't get
that's
a
what I'm
job.
saying.
They could never get a job. The man have, yeah, so
Yeah,
the man have to pay alimony.
yeah.
But in this day and age, they should just get rid of it.
I agree with you, sir.
It's just like a ridiculous rule. Like, you got to pay for this person, but that person wants equal rights. So why should I have to pay for them? Tell them to get off their ass and go get a job.
Well, women today have great opportunities. In fact, sometimes the society will pick the woman over merit,
Yeah,
right?
women do have great opportunities.
Exactly, and
I've,
that's a
I've,
good. That's a
I've been
good.
having a big debate with someone recently about women's sports,
Mhm.
and yes, I agree women should be paid the same as men. One of you,
Well, I don't. I don't.
Oh no, I do. They should be get paid the same amount as men. Now,
Well,
this
no, because in a
same.
capitalist society, you pay according to what the person brings in, and it's a reality that women's sports do not have the financial support
Oh
of
yeah,
the
no,
men.
no,
So I don't agree that they should have equal pay. I mean,
no. I
equal pay
agree. They should have the
saying,
same. They should get paid the same percentage as men. But if they are paid the same percentage as men, all the women in the women's sport would have to pay themselves out of pocket themselves to pay for them sports.
I just think it should, in a capitalist society, like superstars get paid more. It should be based on merit. And women's sports, say women's basketball, is nowhere as popular as
Yeah,
the men.
that's
NBA.
what I mean. If you look at the women's basketball, for example, say the men's, we take the
Uh-huh.
men's. The men's make say 500 million a year
Right.
in revenue. Now the women's make minus 50 million a year. So pay them the same percent. Make the women pay for to play the sport. Then if that's what they want, give them it. Let them pay the 75,000 each to play basketball.
The reality is, we're talking about gender preference, and at least in a practical sense, sports are more important to men in general than to women, right?
Yeah,
So there's a pretend that there's not.
let's
But
do that.
I'm a capitalist, and whatever, if women sports brought in more money than men, then the women should get paid more. So it should be based on merit, not an artificial pretend.
If you actually look at it statistically, women actually get paid more than men in sport because you
Do
got
they?
like let's say you got your USA American women's team. Well,
Right.
they got 37% of the winnings between them. So
Oh,
then you look at your men's say your men's USA soccer team.
right.
They got 3% of the winnings.
Well, American soccer is not like football. And Sarah Lee said, "I thought we were talking about World War II."
Yeah, we just got off subject. It happens with me
So
yourself.
somebody brought up that methamphetamine was popularized. Well, Hitler and German troops did use a lot of meth for sure, but American troops use meth too, but probably not
Yeah.
because in warfare you use what will help you, and if you
Here's,
need to stay awake, you take what you need to. So most
here's a
troops
good one
use.
then. It is a good one for you about the meth and stuff. During Vietnam,
Uh,
the Americans massively abused. Um,
drugs,
yeah, like I
for
can't try
sure.
to think of it. It's heroin. It's literally like a pure form of
Yeah,
heroin. I can't remember what it was called now. It had a technical term. It's like meth. No, not
yeah,
meth. Morphine. They abused it. Now,
correct.
98%
By
of
the
the
way,
people
I
that
had
come back home.
friends who were old vets, and they talked about what you're talking about, and you're correct. Yeah.
98% of them
Opium.
people that come home
Uh-huh.
are not drug addicts. They never touch drugs. They
Opium.
never look. They
Yeah.
never looked for heroin. They never tried to get it. But they had the purest form of heroin. Or while they were over there,
Wow.
why did they not become drug addicts when they were abusing it over there? And as soon as they come home, they
Uh-huh.
stop dead.
Did they?
Yeah,
I don't
like
know that part of the story.
statistically, 98% of them
Wow.
didn't touch another drug. It's all been documented. It's all out there.
There's some. I heard a doctor who dealt with drug abusers, and he said, uh, and I don't want. I'm not an expert, but he said withdrawal from drugs like opium, heroin is hard, but not as hard as some movies pretend.
Yeah.
He said it's like a bad case of the flu. I don't know, but the media has twisted a lot of things.
Because
So
we still do it now. If you're in a
mhm,
car accident and you go into hospital,
right.
they will give you a morphine. But this morphine, I can't remember the exact name, but this morphine is 100% heroin.
Oh, okay. Maybe I had a
And what and,
gallbladder attack and they gave me something like that.
and we all get it when we go into hospital. We get
Yeah,
it pumped into us because of the pain.
yeah.
And when we leave hospital, we're not seeking heroin.
Well, it's probably all under those class of drugs with different names.
Oh no, no, it is literally 100% heroin. Because I used to work for a company that used to transport it from one hospital
Mhm.
to another,
Okay.
and we got into it's like an armored truck we got used to get into, and it was only like a small cardboard box, like say 10 centimeters wide, 10 centimeters
Right.
long, and that's all it was in this van. Now, this van was a big van. Now, if the police pulled us over,
Uh-huh.
well, even put the lights on, we weren't allowed to stop. By
Uh-huh.
government order, we had to carry on driving.
Right.
And even if we did pull over, we didn't open the windows. We just put a piece of paper on the thingy, showed them what we were carrying, and they'd either escort us to where we're going,
Right.
or they had to take us to the police station, lock us up in the car park, make sure
Wow.
everywhere was secure. This is government order as well. So the government wanted it. Make sure everywhere was secure. Make sure that there's nobody can anyway. What's the name? That wasn't
Right.
involved in that incident can get into the car park, and
Uh-huh.
then we'd open the window a millimeter to speak to them.
By
We
the
weren't.
way, I didn't mean Sarah Lee's talking about withdrawals can kill you. But also, I think truth is hard to get from American media. And I talked about this one doctor, but certainly withdrawal would be difficult. But I don't know if it's like in the movies. I
It's,
never took heroin.
it's not technically the withdrawal that kills them. It's well from the main drug. It's the withdrawal from the crap that they put in it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It's the same with legal medication.
I didn't know that. It's
Yeah,
the fillers and all these effects.
look at
But
the
remember, like the fentanyl was gone out of control. This family, the Sackler family, knew the harmful effects. They were legally selling fentanyl, but not being responsible. And they've been sued and should be sued and maybe go to jail. But apparently, the fentanyl originally legally was under the control of the Sackler family. So it's morally reprehensible what people can do for money.
hey
But
laddie. But it wasn't. It's not morphine, Sarah. It's I can't remember the exact name of it. It's got a stupid name. It's a Latin name, but it's like morphine, but it's 10 times stronger than morphine,
wow.
and
Well,
that's
I've
what.
never taken fentanyl, but even people on here have talked about taking it.
There's an odds that you've had fentanyl before, though. There is a high
You
chance that you've had it.
have you had it?
Well, it was in medication.
Yeah, it was used as a medication like most of these drugs, but of course it's been abused and it's epidemic and has killed
Yeah.
many Americans.
Fentanyl was used in cough medicine back
Okay,
in the 80s.
okay. Yeah, and original Coca-Cola had cocaine kind of.
Yeah. Well, it did actually have cocaine in it, because that's why it's called Coca-Cola.
Yeah, exactly. Freud was a cocaine addict too. So
Yeah.
there's this historical basis. It's drugs have been used politically. We're talking about history, and that's how England took over control, say, of China. That there was their policy was to addict the nationals, right? And
Yeah, we went over there. We
yeah,
told them to buy our opium. They said no. We shot a few of them. So they started buying our
yeah,
opium.
yeah. Oh,
A few years
yeah.
later, they'd say, no, we don't want your opium anymore. Our people are getting addicted. So we shot them and then made them
That's
stop the
correct.
opium.
Isn't that appalling? But Wrighty's completely.
Look,
Yeah.
look what the Americans financed for us to do to India
Okay.
during the independence. Which now
Independence of the
I might upset your ears, Sam, but I don't mean to. But when the Americans believe that they won the independence war,
UK.
you actually lost it.
We lost what war?
The independent war for your
The
independence.
Revolutionary War.
Yeah, the Revolutionary War.
We lost it, even though we became
technically lost it,
independent from Britain.
but you didn't.
We're not independent from Britain.
No, you are now, but at the time you didn't actually become independent.
We didn't.
It's a strange treaty that you signed, because we signed the treaty, but we were winning,
You
and
were
then
winning.
we left because we were winning,
Well,
and then we looked at it and we went, well, we've destroyed the East Coast, which we did with our
yeah,
tobacco farms, but then we also had a treaty with the Indians,
correct.
and that was to say that we would never leave we would never go past a certain line,
Right.
which is what you took the independence for, and we thought, how can we break this treaty without looking bad?
Well, treaties are broken all the time. We were talking
Yep.
about World War II.
But
Treaties are worthless if a nation decides it's in their interest to break it. A prime example is Ukraine had a treaty with Russia. not to invade. They gave up their nuclear weapons. How did
Yeah,
that work out? So
yeah, but
treaty.
we screwed that one up though with that treaty. That's our fault, and America's fault,
Well, I
and
don't know
everyone
about
else.
faults, but treaties are worthless when
But
nations want to
look at
ignore
the treaty. Look at the treaty we signed with Russia. We will not poach any states that come from
them. Right,
the old Soviet Union to
right,
join NATO.
right.
So what did we do?
But Wrighty, historians realize treaties are worthless once a nation decides to violate it. That's history,
Oh yeah,
right?
that's true. What I'm saying is that the treaty that we signed with Russia and Ukraine was
Uh,
Ukraine had nuclear weapons, but
correct.
so to get rid of the nuclear weapons and for them to gain independence, it was that they will not sign with NATO for over 100 years.
I believe that. Yeah.
And guess what we did? Not you, not Americans, the British. Guess what the British tried to do?
Yeah, but again, treaties are shit
Yeah,
when nations
absolutely.
want to violate it, right?
But the British tried to get Ukraine into NATO.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics not talked about. It's not all Ukraine is perfect, Russia's bad.
Oh
For
no,
sure.
that's what I mean. There are reasons why that
Yeah.
war. We caused that war. Like
Well, I
the
don't think we caused that war, but
no,
NATO
not
was
you,
certainly a factor that
not,
threatened Russia.
not
Right.
the Americans, but the British did. Like Israel, the British caused that war as well.
But yeah, a lot of our nations together have caused conflicts.
Oh no,
That
Britain has caused the war with Israel due to World War
well,
Two.
you're talking about the Balfour Declaration because Britain did create a structure for the independence of Israel. Correct.
No, no, before then during the war we promised 3 different countries that land.
That sounds right.
But we
Yeah,
did. We offered it to the
I believe
Palestine. We offered it to the Israelites, and we offered it to someone else.
that
to,
sounds right.
to allies to go against
Yeah,
Germany.
yeah. The
So
British
we,
really fucked it up.
yeah,
Correct.
so because we offered it to 3 different countries, they're all
Yeah,
going, well,
that sounds.
it's ours, and it's ours. So the British did as caused that war. No matter how you look
Yeah,
at it,
I
British
think so.
people caused that war.
But if you're an Israeli citizen, you want that creation of a Jewish state, right? And it is remarkable. I've been in Israel and Jordan, how the Western society of Israel has created incredible sources. Like they're a big part of NASDAQ. They've created scientific because the Jewish people are interested in how high achieving they are, and Israel is an example because all the other nations, or a lot of them, are shit societies, except if they have a lot of oil. Well, Israel never had oil, but they developed an incredible society based on their knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been there, and it looks so much different than, say, Jordan or Egypt. It's a
Okay,
Western society, the others are not.
just let me finish my thoughts on this revolutionary war. See what your opinion is on it. I believe we won it in the end, but so when we signed the treaty with yous, we invaded the rest of America so we could grow cotton and tobacco.
Okay,
We was also given a financial supplement from America,
correct,
which we used to invade India.
correct.
Now, at the time, India had a GPA of 23% of the world's GPA. When we left India, they had a 3% GPA. We transferred all that, like 18% GPA,
Uh-huh.
to the UK.
That sounds right.
So not only did we screw over the Indians, the American Indians, we also screwed over India, and we done
Well, of
that.
course,
We
of
done
course.
that by using America for giving them back the land that we destroyed. Because we did destroy your farming lands on the East Coast. That's our fault.
Okay,
The British destroy everything. We're just horrible people.
okay.
I'm not even going to
Well,
deny that one.
they were these nations. Take the reality that these nations thought they had ownership of the oil in these Arabic states, which is ridiculous. But power determines. So a lot of these Arabs came and said, "Wait a minute, we want the revenue from our own oil," and these colonial powers said no, including America. So some
Yeah,
of these people we termed revolutionary were right because their oil doesn't really rationally belong to America or UK, but nations will act in their self-interest. And when politicians get moralistic like Jimmy Carter, they often fail, right?
Yeah, that's how
Because
British Petroleum
unfortunately,
started.
morality does not dictate over power, raw power.
Yeah, but that's how British Petroleum started. We needed oil. We looked in the history
BP,
books. Yeah,
yeah.
we looked at the history books to find oil.
American oil companies too. The same thing that we came in. These companies took the
Oh,
oil until the nationalistic parties
oh no,
rebelled.
we made a deal with, I think it was Iraq, to get the oil off them. It might not have been Iraq, but
Gaddafi. Yeah, it was.
I know it was a
It was this
Persian, but
company. I
the
forget the
deal
name.
was
Yeah.
in our favour, 90
Well, of
10.
course,
So
of
we had
course.
90% of the profits in our favour, and they had 10.
Yeah.
No other country has ever got more than 20% from anything.
Rape.
Britain,
Yeah, they had
but,
to fight for it. That's correct.
yeah,
British Petroleum and American. I forget the name of this one company that dealt with Gaddafi.
yeah.
But yeah, correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So
We
yeah,
we we're nasty people. The British are
I
just
wouldn't say
horrible.
nasty people. I would say a real politic that nations will act out of their self-interest. In terms of morality, we're all complicit, but America is better because, say, in World War II, we had complete power when we dropped the bombs. The other nations saw the destruction from our bombs and were scared. What if Russia? What if not? What if Hitler had dropped bombs? Do you think he would have stopped? But America did. We didn't really take advantage to invade countries once we had ultimate power. After we
No, you did.
dropped a few
No,
bombs, we could have,
you did.
but we did
No,
not.
no, you did.
No, we
America
didn't.
did. You
We
did.
had the
Look at
Marshall Plan, sir.
yeah, but look what you did in Egypt.
Did we invade Egypt?
No, but we did, and we were
Well,
going
the
into Egypt.
UK has been horrible. Look what they've
Yeah,
done.
no, what it was is the Suez. I'm not sure the same, but the
The
Suez Canal.
Suez Canal, the war against them that Eisenhower stopped.
But America said
Uh-huh.
there's a reason why he said it. America's told Egypt that he should build this Suez Canal, the damage stuff like that, everything there, and
Well, the
The
Israeli,
Egyptian,
French, and English invaded to acquire the Suez Canal, and Eisenhower stopped it.
yeah, but
Right?
there was a reason he did stop it, but there
There's
was a reason
always
why he
reasons.
stopped it. But
Yeah.
they convinced the Americans convinced the Egyptians to build some type of structure in the Suez Canal and that.
Okay.
And then the Egyptians were like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. Who's paying for it? And the Americans went, not us. So they actually went around everywhere trying to get the money. And I
Uh-huh.
think it was the Germans or the Russians, one of them, actually paid for it. And at the end of the war, because we'd fought for it, and the idea was it was our land, and because
Uh-huh.
Eisenhower seen that if we owned the main transport into Africa and that the main trade route into
Oh,
Africa, that wouldn't work. So when he seen us invade, he actually went to the UN.
uh-huh.
It wasn't a war, but it was a war between England, France, and the UN. And
And the
when
UN, that I
the,
didn't know.
the United Nations, because Eisenhower went to the United Nations and told
Uh-huh.
them that we're doing this and we're doing that. So they
Uh-huh.
went in there and they were actually killing British and French troops.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
what pulled us out.
Americans too. The CIA historically would assassinate, and so this assassination goes back to JFK because the CIA had a plan to kill Castro. So who killed JFK? Well, if I was Castro, I might have said, "Well, Kennedy's administration tried to kill me. I'll kill Kennedy." So it's a dangerous policy when you start assassinating leaders because
Yeah,
they
the, C-
can come back and do it.
the CIA is the worst thing that was ever created in the world, I'm telling you.
Pretty bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty bad. I agree.
What they did in the Middle East is there was, I can't remember what country it was, but
Iran. Well, look what
I think it was Roosevelt was
they
president.
removed the socialist elected leader of Iran, and how did that turn out? Right.
Yeah, but look how they done it.
Well, I agree.
They paid they paid the day workers to go out and do pro rallies for the person that was in charge at the time, and
yeah,
then then riot.
yeah. You don't
Have you
historically.
noticed? Have you noticed how that seems to always happen when there's a peaceful protest over something, and
Yeah,
then there's
for sure.
riots?
Yeah. Well, so we're bringing history back to the current U.S. administration, and the governmental parts will try to take as much power as they can. And our forefathers, that's why they created three branches of government, but they didn't want one domination. But Trump is really, with this immigration policy, which I generally support, he's bypassing constitutional safeguards, which is very dangerous. So I support deporting the bad guys, but he's probably overstepping. So we'll see who's righteous and steps back in support of the Constitution, saying that Biden and the other presidents did a horrible job with the border and caused great damage to our country. And now, in a way,
I
got elected because of that. But I think he may be going too far, even though generally we should definitely deport destructive illegals.
I believe Biden didn't do no wrong.
Biden did no wrong.
No.
Well, let's go back to appeasement. So the Iran deal, Biden, and he was fearful. He wasn't a bold president, showed leadership, and Obama the same thing. Because the reality is, this day has come that Iran has enriched uranium. So those presidents didn't act. Finally, because of Israelis, Trump stepped up, I think, because he wants a Nobel Prize. Whatever the reasons, if it helps America, that's to the good.
The thing is, though, with Biden, there's been a few people that have come out that was part of his office that have literally, they've left America. They've done a few like interviews and they've gone. I went up to one of the stories was he went up to Biden and he said, are you sure you want this because you signed this sort of treaty or whatever it was? And he's like, no, I never. Biden didn't even know where he was 90% of the time.
It's fascinating, but some books have come out. I've seen the interviews. It's criminal how people around Biden, because they wanted to keep their power positions, hid the truth from the American people. It's a scandal, and in my view, those people should go to jail. The Republicans are investigating. But this is one case, and I don't always support Fox News, but they got the story right, that Biden was incapacitated, and the liberal media, in this case, really lied for Biden. It's a disgrace, man.
That's the only reason I believe Biden done no wrong, because I don't think he should have been president. He was
correct.
He was suffering with something mentally, and
correct.
He wasn't there
correct.
at all. There's no way. He was just there as a face, a puppet for other
correct.
people, and everyone's going to hate Biden for what he did to this and he done that.
Yeah, he wrecked his place in history by going to hubris and saying he wanted to be reelected. You know, this hubris takes down many powerful men, and Shakespeare had his point, and it happened to Biden. He never should have run for reelection, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Why did he? Because of his hubris, meaning his personal belief in himself. He wasn't favoring the country. He was favoring his delusions, and people around him, including his wife, fed into it. So there's a lot of corruption around Biden, and they hurt the American people. And that's maybe why Trump got elected. If there had been a different candidate, who knows?
So 2 points. First off, Master Brunch, why are you shaking your head? I'd love to hear your opinion on that. And secondly, going by, and I could be wrong on this, I'm not too sure, but going by your constitution, aren't you allowed to like dethrone, I don't think the word's right, but dethrone the government?
I think he has a good comment. I think there's a lot of corruption that has led to wars. It's not just nonsense. The Iraq and all these needless wars. Right?
We have been getting control for years. We're just too stupid to see it.
Yeah.
I say we as in general, but it's more like the common man has been. Look at what happened a few years ago.
Well, sure. Power, historically, the elites.
No, I mean about a certain pandemic that happened.
You want to talk about the pandemic?
Yeah, the certain pandemic that happened.
We have to be careful because YouTube has taken down.
That's why I'm being I don't
really want to get into it.
But let's say during that pandemic, we were told to stay in our homes and do this and do that and do this, and people followed.
Correct.
That, in my opinion, was a test to see who'd follow. You took
Uh, the
people
real
took
victim. Well, I don't
a
necessarily agree.
vaccine. Well, people took a vaccine for
I
something.
took the vaccine. I
Yeah,
took
but
it.
people took a vaccine and were told that they have to have this vaccine to do A,
Yeah,
B, or C. I
correct.
don't. I didn't take the vaccine because I don't like that. That's wrong. You shouldn't have to take
Um,
the vaccine.
well, in times of national emergency, the Constitution can be invalidated. We see that in times of war because Lincoln put journalists in prison. So COVID was definitely an emergency, but there are a lot of mistakes for sure.
Yeah, but was it? People, the amount of people that died from that. Now, God rest their souls. The ones that
Yeah.
passed away.
Well,
But if you look at the statistics, it was like what 0.3% of the population, the world's
Well, not
population.
only that, but mainly old people who no longer contribute. We don't want old people to die from COVID, but mainly old people. But the real, to me, the real sacrifice were American children who lost years of education.
Yeah,
And the school should not have been shut down,
it,
a lot of people now believe.
it's
That
it's
was a
ruined it's
disgrace.
ruined a lot of children's social
Yeah,
skills, and
terrible, terrible.
mood poisoning was it really though? Because what strain? Over here, we got told there was like 17 different
Uh-huh,
strains
uh-huh.
in the space of 6 months. How can you vaccinate to a strain? And then you've got the fact that any other medication in the world takes up to 2 years, maybe more.
Can we switch away from COVID,
Yeah, but
please?
I am not. I'm just saying, this is the medication thing. You say a new medication comes out, it takes 6 months of trial, 6 months of this, 6 months of that, 6 months of this. How is it out so fast?
Uh, I'm
Do you know what I
gonna.
mean?
Are you a molecular biology? You're not, and neither am I. So let's go to one. We have one in
Yeah,
chat. Mood
that's what I mean.
poisoning.
That's,
As a molecular biologist, I can say that the vaccine was legit. I believe it was legit, but there were problems. There was the real is that it came out of China, so China is legally responsible for
no,
trillions of
not
dollars in
really.
debt. But do you think anyone's going to
No,
sue? So
China,
real politics.
China
Yeah.
wasn't responsible.
It didn't come out of China.
It come out of China, but it didn't come out. It didn't come
Okay,
from
again,
China.
Righty, I got to veer away from this.
Yeah, no, but I know people are saying it come out of China, but it didn't actually come out from a Chinese
Okay, but
organization.
you're not listening to me, Righty. For practical reasons,
Yeah,
I
no, I
don't
know, I
want
know, I know, I know.
COVID.
But
So let's
I'm
drop it.
actually,
Let's drop it. All right,
yeah,
please.
I'll drop it. Yeah, I agree.
Well,
We'll move on.
drop it then. Really.
We'll move on.
We have about 10 minutes. Let's try to summarize history and acknowledge people like Mood Poisoning,
Yeah,
Master Branch. Thank you for 14 people. Isn't a lot, but it's worth this discussion because I love talking history to Righty. And hopefully, do you want to do it again next week?
yeah, I'd love to do it again. I enjoy this
Let's do it.
subject. Just on another note, though, Mood, if there's any way of contacting you at all privately or whatever, I'd love to hear more. Um,
Well, we contact enough, but yeah, we talk. We have DM.
no, I mean mood poisoning. I'd love to hear more because, like, I could be
Oh,
wrong.
you
I
want to?
could
Well,
be wrong.
that I have nothing to do with. Mood
Yeah, and
poisoning
then
is very bright for
so
sure.
if we narrow down what we've a conversation
But
about, because
I'm
you
not
know,
gonna do this
oh,
COVID.
I'm not talking about that. No, I've moved on.
Yeah,
But
whatever you do in
if
your
we narrow
channel.
down what this stream is about, we kind of like we're all over the place. But
Well,
in general
we
speaking,
history.
yeah,
COVID is a historical emergency that happened,
but
and it's affects society. The history of COVID. But I don't want to talk about
yeah.
COVID
Oh
for
no, yeah.
practical reasons.
Oh,
All
sound.
right,
I'll message you, mate.
channels
But
have
if
gone down for it.
yeah, but that's what I mean. I've moved on from that. But what I'm saying is the whole concept is what's the word synopsis is it
Okay, so
of this stream
oh,
is we don't for some reason as a human race
mhm.
we don't learn from history.
Sometimes we do, and a lot of times we don't. And I brought up appeasement that I think has worked in Trump's determination to take action. Now, has he continued? No, he stopped the Israelis. The Israelis have been winning, but I think to try to
Yeah,
get
but
his Nobel Peace Prize, he wanted to make peace, but at what cost? So we'll see what happens
I don't think there's any cost at all on your side, on Trump's side.
on American side.
Yeah, I don't think there's any cost at all because what
So
happened was
far, no. Yeah, so
Trump
far.
said, Trump went, I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
And the Iran's gone, no, you're not. And
right.
Trump's gone, yeah, there you go, bomb, smack, done it. And then they've gone, oh, well, what we'll do is we'll bomb them back. And they did try and bomb us back. And he was,
Well, not really. No, they did not. It was a sham because they informed. They did it for their public consumption so they can say, look at
oh, no,
us. We attacked the great
you do
Satan.
know,
But they didn't
you
really,
do
it
know
wasn't a
any,
real attack.
yeah, but
Right?
you do know any missiles that are fired, every country has to be told what's fired.
Why?
Due to it's like it's a nuclear war. It's something to do with nuclear war, the nuclear treaty. For any missile that is fired beforehand, you have to give warning. Like when
But
Russia,
do you think,
fired
sure, do you think the
missiles.
Iranians informed the Israelis
Yeah,
every one of
they
their
have,
missiles, 400?
they have to.
Really? That's interesting. I didn't know that.
It's Russia informed
Then why
Ukraine.
were people killed? I don't know about that. It might.
Do-
The
do-
Iranians certainly informed
Yeah,
Qatar.
yeah, no,
So
because
that
what
was
you do, what it is like, Putin done it. Putin's
yeah,
been doing it all the Ukraine. But what it is, you do is they go, I'm going to send bombs. They're going
right,
to be these bombs. Okay,
right.
when you send them, not telling you.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
right.
But but they've got to tell them what bombs they are. Because if it's a nuclear bomb, then they're breaking the treaty, and then
Oh,
this
well,
and
but
that.
you're talking about the
It's very
missiles
weird.
have not been nuclear so far, sir. So it's not relevant. If you're involving nuclear, but there, let me bring up this point, and then you can make the final statement. Then we have to go.
Yeah, before you say
Nation,
that,
yeah.
sorry. Is
No,
it
go ahead.
okay is it okay if I send you a DM mood? I don't want to just randomly DM you.
Oh, you want to check in with okay with
Yeah,
mood
so
poisoning?
yeah,
Is it okay
I
that
want to
he
make sure
wants to
it's okay to
contact
send it a
you?
message.
That's why Wrighty is really a good guy, right? Because he's asking classily permission. Mood poisoning. That's fine, she said.
Thank you. So sorry to interrupt
She's
you,
a
sir.
very
I'll let you
intelligent
finish.
woman. So, Wrighty, we'll see what happens with Iran. Hopefully, most of us want peace, but we can talk about Israel, and I think I'm probably more pro-Israeli than you. And
I I don't know enough about that war. Maybe next
I
time
know
you
a
can
lot
tell
about
me.
that war.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe next time you can tell me enough because I haven't actually kept up with it.
But I'd like to hear opposing pro-Palestinian, less pro-Israeli to have a more valid
I'm
discussion.
I'm more neutral because I don't really know what's going on.
Right,
I'm not happy the fact that I turn on YouTube and I see an ad for Israel,
right,
pro-Israel. I think I'm not happy with that because that's
right.
political. YouTube shouldn't be doing political stuff like that, in my opinion.
That's interesting. There shouldn't be ads, political manipulation.
Yes,
I
with
would
what
agree
this,
with you. Yeah, I don't want YouTube to be get propaganda, but
I
the
don't.
reality is they're a business, so they're going to act out of their self-interest.
Yeah,
Correct? Like I found out something about Tucker Carlson, that it's true that he takes money from, if I'm correct, from these Middle Eastern Muslim nations. So if you take money, you're corrupt.
um, yes and no, because you've got a lot of news companies
So
actually
if
owned by the
Tucker
Middle Eastern
Carlson, I don't
people.
know the amount he got, but if he's getting millions of dollars from a pro-Arab situation, you don't think that's going to sway him because he loses
It,
money if he takes a different position. So I want to know who's taking money from even Israel, who's taking money from Israel, who's taking money from these nations. We deserve to know that, and that's why the media is not respected.
who was it? Yeah, I think it's Rupert Murdoch was financing one of
Murdoch
them or something, and
could be, yeah.
what's his name? Oh, who's that idiot that I can't stand? Some British
Who?
news reporter. I can't remember his name. I always want to punch him in the face every time I see him.
Which one? Now I'm curious.
I'll remember the name. I just can't figure his name. He used to work for the
It's a
News of the World.
disgrace to media,
But
but
he was under the employee of Rupert Murdoch for years and taking his money. But Murdoch was supporting. I don't know. I can't remember what side. I'm presuming it's the
yeah,
bad
they
side.
have their agenda. I agree that
So if you're just getting paid by that organisation and that organisation say is the ones that give
right,
funding,
right,
say Palestine, are
right.
you really being
No,
what's the name if you're just getting paid?
obviously not, because there's incentive to toe the line.
Yeah, so
Just like, yeah,
like Tucker Carlson. Now we don't know if it's true or not, whatever.
I
But
watch him sometimes.
say he's just getting paid
Right,
just for that.
right.
Piers Morgan, that's his name. Thank you, Master Branch.
Oh,
Thank you
Piers
very much.
Morgan.
What do you
I've
think of his
seen
name?
some of his shows. Yeah.
Yeah, he was getting paid by Rupert Murdoch, and
Well,
now
there
he's
you
not.
go.
Allegedly, he's not. I doubt it, but allegedly he's
A
not.
lot of these
I
people.
can't stand him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
money. It's true.
I
So,
can't stand Piers Morgan. If he ever steps into this city, he's a dead man
well,
because
you
of
know him better than me,
what
but
he
you
said
don't
about
want
the
to say
and
that.
stuff.
Well, you
Oh
don't
no,
want.
he
You don't
knows.
want.
Oh no, he knows. The whole city's told him.
Okay.
A certain thing happened years ago at a football game where a lot of Liverpool fans died.
Okay. Can I have my final statement and
Oh
then
yeah,
you
sorry,
will?
Sam.
You need
Sorry,
to
Sam.
end it. No, you'll get the final word.
No,
But
it's all right. Glad you get the final
let
word.
me let me I want you to have the final word. So my final word is that why come here? Because we have no agenda. I don't take money. I'm an independent, and strangely on this little stream with 8 people watching, we're more independent. And that's our value. So thank you to 8 people and 15, and hopefully there's people on replay that even from a little a stream like ours, you can get a greater truth. So your final statement, Wrighty. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you next week.
My final statement is I'm sorry about my accent. I am trying to slow down for a lot of people because my accent's very thick. Thank you for coming and giving us an audience. Master Brunch, thank you as well, and Sarah, I'm mood. I'll reach out in a bit because I'd like to hear more. I could be wrong, I could be stupid, whatever.
You're not stupid.
I'm a very,
You're
I
very
believe
intelligent, or I wouldn't do this with you.
I'm a paranoid person when it comes to governments. So
No, I think you aren't stupid. I like your points of view, and if I'm wrong, I'll be challenged. So thank everybody. Hopefully there'll be more in replay, and maybe we can build a little audience. So
yeah,
till next.
I actually enjoyed this stream. Thank you, Sam,
I
for having
enjoyed
me.
it. Yeah. I like talking with you. So thank you very much. We'll hopefully see some of you next week. And I think this has value. So thank you, Wrighty. Blessings to everybody. Ciao.
Bye.
Yeah, that